any, like, we're listening to we're on this podcast right now, or any webinar you go on, just make a decision to execute on what's being said. Like, if I listen to something, now I'm like, all right, what's the action steps here? Is it two things, one thing? It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but that's what I would encourage everybody. Like, don't just listen to things, like, do something about it.
All right, welcome to another edition of Brews and BizDev. Today, our illustrious guest is Morgan J. Ingram, here to give us some wisdom, I hope, on what we can do to cut through the noise. There's a lot of it these days, a little bit of extra noise. So, Morgan, my man, thanks for coming out.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I do want to get into, I like to go in a little direction here where I like to pull out the really bad stuff, right? I like to get people's, like, what's the worst most cringy experience you've had being sold to? Because I know salespeople, right? We hate having those bad experiences, and then like to provide a little tip so we stay positive. We don't just go with the negative trip.
Yep.
Get into the nitty gritty here. Our theme is that the guest gets to pick a brew. And you have chosen your brew. So why don't you tell us first what your brew is and chose it?
Yeah, so my brew is from the Abita Brewing, the Purple Haze Raspberry Lager. So the reason I like this one is it started really in quarantine. So I got a Whole Foods downstairs. I went down to Whole Foods and I was like, all right, like, I needed like to take a break here. Like, I just need a drink. And so I saw it and I was like, this is pretty cool. Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix. That's kind of what I thought about. Mm-hmm. And then I got it and then I tasted it. I was like, this is fantastic. So this is one of my go-tos. Like, every weekend,
nice.
I grab one of these and
this is the staple. Well, here's to it, my man. No. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, enough fruit to be refreshing, but it's not, like pop. It doesn't taste like
it's not like citrusy where it's like, so it's like, but this, like, it's enough. It's enough.
It is, and a lower ABV than I usually choose myself. So it's going to be nice and chilled today.
Yeah. It's not the oh dang, what's the one that I got the other day and it was so aggressive. I'm trying to. It was like a 10%er.
Oh man, that's once you hit double digits, you're not fucking around.
Oh my, I'm like losing it because I get. Oh yes, it's the Space Ale.
Okay.
Space Dust IPA.
Okay.
So it's like a 10%er.
Heavy hitter. Yeah.
You get like 3 of those and you're feeling great. You're like, all right, what up, y'all? So I was like, I'm not gonna space dust you. So I'm just gonna get a Purple Haze.
3 of them you're feeling great. 5 of them you're feeling something else. The next morning you're feeling worse. Yeah,
you're ready to go out. You're ready to go out after 5 of them. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. That depends, right? You got to do either the high ABV, because if you only got room for 1 or 2, then you got to get your juice up a little bit. But if you want to do the pounding thing, or like drink through a Saturday or something like that, I mean, those high ABV, those IPAs, the doubles, some of those stouts, I mean, they really can put you on your ass, frankly.
Absolutely.
Nice. All right. And before we get in the nitty gritty, why don't you also just tell everybody, our listeners here, who you are, what's your elevator pitch version of your story?
Yeah, nothing crazy, man. So, I started off as a sales development rep, an SDR, which most of everyone listening probably knows what that is. And so prospect into net new accounts. Originally, that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to get into sales. Most people probably can say the same thing. So what I wanted to do was be a sports agent. So graduated with finance and sports management, double major out of the University of Georgia. And obviously didn't end up being a sports agent. They told me how to go to law school and I was like, I don't really know about all that. Like, that's just not the move. And so then from there, what ended up happening is I went to a local event here in Atlanta, and then they were like, hey, you should go check out this company called Terminus. They just got funding. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. Like, let me go figure that out. And so from there, learned about what an SDR role was, learned what SaaS companies even do, cold called the VP of sales, and then that's how I got my role as an SDR. That's how I first started.
Nice. You called into the role.
I cold call in the role, which again, I tell people, it's like, they're like, how do you get this job? I'm like, just do what the job says. Like if you're a marketer, then you should probably figure out a way to market to the other marketers there, or send in a project. Like IT, well, okay, maybe you should code something and send it to them. I don't know. I just feel like you should just do what the job says. So I just cold called them because the criteria was, hey, we want someone who cold calls. Like, all right, I'll cold call them. Like there wasn't all the other stuff we have out now back then. So I was just like, yeah, why not? So yeah.
Well, that's you couldn't get more perfect as an entry into the field, right? And
and then it went from there.
That when they're doing jobs, they also don't do it when they're going for gigs, like as far as like trying to get clients, right? Marketers, I'm slightly more in there than I am in the sales world, though my world is blending them together. Yeah. And classically, right, old school agencies, and we all watched it, and Mad Men and all those kind of like references that everyone knows, where creative agencies are out with sales teams, right? You have reps, and even at the local level, like the agencies don't get actual work based on their marketing. They get work based on sending like account executives out into the field and like, shaking hands at networking meetings. And it was like, oh, what if we could start being a marketing company that actually got work because of the marketing you were doing? Like that's what got you a client.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, shocker, right? It's like, come on. Yeah. So I started off as this SDR. I was in that role for a year. I created something called the YouTube channel called the SDR Chronicles. That's what most people know me for. That's like really where I started out. And then I got promoted to an SDR manager. I had 13 reps, managed that team, was great. And then got founded by John Barrow's sales training. And I've been with the organization for 3 years now. Nice. Which is crazy to even think about. So, and that's where I've been at. So my career has just transcended in a very unique way, but it's been exciting.
Yeah, no, it's a cool story arc, and I've checked out a lot of the the chronicles, and I jumped on a few weeks ago a muffins episode. I had like 10 minutes, and I tried to grab in there and like grab a question, and then a client called. I'm like, oh fuck, all right, well, so much for the muffins. I didn't have any muffins, but I liked the pragmatic approach. Right. I like and I think I said when I reached out to you in the first place that the blend of like, here are real tactics, right? Here are things that you can do, the formulas, here's the path to follow, but then also like, the mindset, and then also video, right? Like let's use tech, let's use social selling. I mean, some of us have been around long enough to, all right, the techniques and the processes, and we're all, old Sandler people and all that kind of stuff that we've integrated, like you have to develop, there's Sandler stuff and spin selling, which then turns into consultative sales, which then of course challenger sale wants to come in and like, oh, don't do that though, do this. And and that there are formulas like that are rigid, but then there's like frameworks, right? Like things you can generally follow, add your own kind of personal brand into, add some new stuff into, like video. And my last gig was a video company. I did BizDev, a video company, so video is close to my heart as well. And that's how I remember seeing you, not even on the YouTube, on LinkedIn. Other people commenting, and like you just having well executed video out there with good tips, but not over polished, not like there's clearly not like 6 figures of a production crew around you. It's straight up stuff. So what had you originally go? I mean, so you get this SDR gig that you like sell yourself into, and then pretty quick you start cranking out the content, right? I mean, pretty quick you kind of like do your own journey. Like, hey, I saw the story. You have a story video. Like, hey, it's been a year now, and here's what's going. And then you got the promotion. So was that your own natural thing? Did you get that idea from somewhere? What had you blend the social and the video in with selling almost immediately?
Yeah, so it's 2 things. It was from Ralph Barcy wrote a blog post, and he's now the VP of sales at Trey. At the time, he was at ServiceNow. And what he said, he was like, hey, an SDR should create a YouTube channel. I was like, oh, it's pretty interesting. What's that about? What's going on? Right? So I remember tweeting him being like, hey, I'm going to do this. Right? And he was like really excited. He's pumped about it. And then I saw Gary Vaynerchuk live. in person, do a keynote, which I was like so amped to see him. And everyone else was like, who's Gary? I'm like, guys, you got to pay attention to Gary. So one thing he said is that, like, if you're a sales rep right now, so it's back in what, 2015, 2016?
Okay.
So he was like, yeah, if you're a sales rep, you should be creating a brand. And he's like, basically all like 98% of you are not going to do it. There's only like a 2% that are going to do it. And then like only like one or two of you or one of you are going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I just took that as like, all right, I need to go do this. And like, it was that night that I created the SDR Chronicles.
Oh,
yeah. Got the YouTube channel, like went to Fiverr to figure out the logos and the stuff like that. And then like basically just started filming. Like we were out of a tech hub. And then I just started filming because I realized that I looked at all the other pieces of content at the time. There was no video. No one was sharing like, hey, I got a YouTube channel. So then I was just like, all right, well, I'll just be the first person to do it. And then just started being consistent and then ran it from there.
Yeah. And it's solid. I mean, like, I don't know the numbers. I don't usually focus in personally on like the exact, what's the subscribers, but I know it's over 10K, right? Like you got a solid base of people like in there watching that stuff regularly. And now it's the muffins, right? Like that's where the muffins come out.
So I've changed it up a little bit because the SDR Chronicles was a journey as me as an SDR.
Yeah.
And I always look at it, and I added extra content after. However, it wasn't the same exact content because I wasn't in it. Like when I was giving that tip and that was advice, it was just like, hey guys, I'm like in your role. Like I'm doing it. It's a little bit different now. So then I was like, all right, well, let's just change it a little bit. Like it's still me, but now it's live Q&A. And that's what people really want right now. They want engagement, they want entertainment, and they want to be able for you to get the answers. And there was no LinkedIn Live, obviously 4 years ago. And so now with the LinkedIn Live component, with the other live sources that are out there, yeah, now Muffins with Morgan is into play. And now, boom, it's pretty awesome because now I can just answer questions while I'm here.
Yeah. You're on the court. You're not coming up with stuff that you think people might need to deal with. They're going to ask you one way or the other, right? So
live, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah. So knowing that, so you've got a lot of stuff coming at you. You're doing these live things. You're getting the real version of what people want to hear, what they're actually dealing with out there as they're trying to do. And in my world, it's a little more BDR than SDR. Like it's the marketing kind of inbound mix. And again, we're an inbound company here, so we're trying to do it consistent with what we actually do. So
right.
I'm not out. I don't do a lot of cold anything personally, right? But obviously. Some approaches, a lot of companies have both going on. They've got the inbound, but they're trying to get the inbound, and midway through they got some ABM going, and then they're trying to use that to help some of their more outbound like SDR types, feeding some of those account executives. So for the people who are out in this insanity that we're all a part of currently, where there's fewer opportunities for sure, right? Fewer companies are right now like actively looking for most kinds of solutions, and there's more noise at the same time, right? So there's enough noise anyway, and now there's way more online because no one has much of anything else to do except for be online. Still not create much, I gotta say. Still not do a lot of better posting, but they're there, clouding up the space. So in these conditions, what have you seen as being the biggest problems? What are people coming to you with the most? Like, I cannot get this done. Like, what is the biggest stuck point?
The biggest point is for people who are trying to figure out how to break through the noise. If I had to point to one thing, it's getting meetings right now. A lot of people, they're not willing to take a meeting. They're like, well, budgets are frozen, or, hey, look, we're not focused on that right now. It's just the biggest thing I'm seeing is like, and people come to me for that advice, right? So there could be other components that this answer could be different for everybody. But I've just seen that like, it's just breaking through the noise right now. Like people are like, hey, how do I like write my email that gets a response? Like, how do I do videos? Like, how do I get people to, when they get on the phone, like, how do I get them to like pay attention to what I'm saying? And because there's so much more noise that's happening now, it's figuring out how do I break through it to make sure it makes sense.
Yeah. Is there anything that's changed that you've seen where, like, let's say something that would have worked 6 months ago that is definitely like, listen, stop doing this. Even if I told you to do it, don't do this. It's not working. Like, is there anything that's changed and like people should stop and maybe start something new?
I don't think there's I'm not, anything's coming to mind where it's like, yeah, do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I said it and it made it work. Maybe it was a year ago. I could have said something differently. I think the whole thing here is that the difference now is you can't get away with your spray and pray, which before you definitely could get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably could schedule meetings because we were in a surplus market. Now we're not in that type of market. So you have to make sure that you're being relevant. I think there's one thing that you have to pay attention to that you, in reality, you could have been paying attention to the whole time, but now it's even more important, is what I like to call the ICP's ICP.
Mm-hmm.
So ideal customer profile, which all that means at the end of the day is if I am targeting a company right now and their buyers are restaurants, that probably is not a smart idea. I probably need to like adjust my messaging. So I need to look at industries that are surging or doing really well. So that will in return get me more meetings because those people are looking to buy and invest to make sure that essentially their buyers are buying from them. So that means they'll buy from you to help their buyers.
ICP's ICP. I like that. All right, cool. Yeah. And really boiling down to like, you got to put some more thought into it, get one level further than where you were thinking before and change gears on what you're saying because their situation is different, right? So knowing, acknowledging there's a different situation that you're speaking into and attempting to interrupt. If you're SDR, right, you're interrupting something constantly.
The clamps are tighter.
Yeah.
So now that I know the clamps are tighter, it's like, all right, well, I got to loosen them up with a different entry point than what I may be used to doing.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. That's cool. So let's flip now to the cringe. Let's go to the cringe. So
let's talk about it.
You're out here. You're in the media, right? You've got enough of a presence, certainly. Where I mean, you don't need much of a presence to be getting bad messaging and crappy approaches coming your way. You just have to exist on LinkedIn these days to get that, and have an email account to get them from that angle. So when you have a presence, all that stuff is 10x. You get way more of it. So what's the worst approach you've got? What's the cringiest, like crappy, cold approach that you've got? And let's say 6, so far this year.
I mean, there's so many, but they're not memorable enough sometimes to like tell you how bad they are, right? So I think the ones that are really bad are when I engage. Like the ones as a whole that are really bad are just when they're novels or they say like, hey, I can help you with your prospecting efforts when like that doesn't make any sense. Like I train people on prospecting. I probably don't need help in that area in terms of buying a service. I'm pretty sure I'm good. Yeah. So that to me is already bad. But yeah, I responded to one person and also it happens to me on Instagram too, because I just like to see like when people say like, hey, I can help you or I want to collab. I genuinely want to see how they respond back to me when I say I'm interested and like how they carry the conversation.
Okay.
And so people get really aggressive. So I responded, this guy, I don't remember what he was, I don't know what they were trying to sell me. And he's like, da-da-da-da. And I was just like going through the conversation. And I remember saying like, yeah, like that sounds kind of interesting. And then he was like, all right, cool. So let's schedule a 15-minute meeting. Now I let it sit there, right? I just let it sit there to see like, how is this person going to engage me moving forward? And then he was like, okay, 15 minutes, like next Tuesday. And then basically I still didn't respond. Right. And again, like this is in between like 10, like 15-minute intervals. So this isn't like long stay. This is like back to back to back. Right. Yeah. Then he goes like, are you afraid? Like, don't you know that you're going to miss out on opportunities? And then I was like, no, I'm not going to miss out on opportunities. Like, I'm pretty good because based on, I think it was like selling me on like profile views or something like that. I was like, I get a good amount of profile views like per week. I don't think everyone wants more, but like, I don't need to invest into something like this is organically happening. And he's like, well, yeah, we could 2X it. And I was like, how? And he's like, well, you got to hop on a call for that. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm just not interested. He's like, well, you're going to miss out on a lot of revenue. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'll be fine. So like that to me was so cringy to me because it's like, yeah, man, like I'm doing pretty well in terms of profile views right now. Like I don't need more of them, and I don't. Well, obviously, I could need more of them. Everyone always needs like more views or whatever. Yes, cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you don't know how in the world that's gonna help me, and you haven't even asked me organically what I'm getting today. You just assume that like I had this amount and I was gonna go this amount. So yeah, that was really cringe for me, man. Like I was just like, what? Like you don't know me at all, and you're talking to me this way. Like it was just super weird. So yeah, I kind of obviously left that conversation, didn't have the meeting, but that's the kind of stuff that happens when you engage with people like that. So Instagram too, like. I wanted to get someone had really nice drawings on their Instagram page. And I was just like, yeah, could you draw a character for me? And they were like, cool. You want to start today? And I was like, what? Like, let me like have a conversation with you first. Like these photos are nice, but like now I want to start today. Like now I'm turned off. So yeah, I don't get it, man. It's really ridiculous. Because
that's not, you wouldn't expect the aggressiveness in that scenario.
No, but also at the same time, like, if someone came at them like that, they probably would get turned off. That's the problem with it. It's like, would you respond to this? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. That's the that's the part that I often don't get about it. Though I have met some people who then they do respond like it's a game, but they're more the old school style, you know, like where everyone's trying to con each other into something, and like you're more, it's, you know, the Glengarry Glen Ross type thing.
Gosh.
I know I just saw, and I don't know if you just went on his thing and that's coming out again, but I know you've done some corporate bro action.
Yeah, man, that's my guy. Shout out to Corporate Bro. That's my homie right there. We collabed and did something. We've been talking about it for a while. So it's super interesting because he came on the SDR Chronicles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that.
It was one of my interviews, and everyone thought he wasn't going to do it. He thought he was just going to be like a troll the whole time. And he actually had really good advice. Like he's actually a good dude. He's actually smart. So yeah, we collabed on his show and it was cool, man. So nice. that just came out this week.
I love that stuff. I mean, I love the parody, the ironic, as they'd say in England, taking a piss out of, you know, like those old
banter,
those old ideas, you know, like that like Glengarry thing, like that style, the everything that's wrong that everyone hates about people who sell and market, right? I mean, it's all this terrible rep, some of it very much earned because people have been operating in those ways for a long time, including still today, right? I mean, there's that aggression you're talking about in those messages. Like, oh, you smell something like the blood in the water approach, and then you're just, you know, and then you get pissed, and people can tell that you're pissed because you're messaging them aggressively. And nobody's ever wanted to get forced into anything like that. Though, if you do watch some of the people that still do it today, and I know Corporate Bro took Grant on in Grant's little clips, you know. And I don't know if you've seen, there's a dude, Mike Winnett, he's pretty big in LinkedIn and on YouTube, also in England. He has a thing called the Contrepreneur, where he runs through and kind of like he snuck into some different events, and like, you know, he lays out for people like, listen, there's a formula for all of these kinds of events, and it's not value, right? It's not like deliver value. These are all pitch sessions, and he just breaks it down. And if you've been in marketing and sales for a while, like, this is influence. Like, you read the book by Cialdini, right? I mean, you understand it, but a lot of people don't, right? And a lot of people lose a lot of money by people promising insane, stupid things and showing media twisting what they're capable of. And I like that people exist now and have a media voice that they can poke holes in that. And, you know, like, say it's possible to do sales and marketing with integrity. Like, you can actually do that, right? And be authentic and just approach people with value, and then let it go. You know, if it's not a fit, right? Like, if you don't know that there are things that are not going to be fits, it's going to be a tough time.
For sure.
Yeah. So you went right into SDR. So you've always been a phone guy. So you never had any fun door-to-door sales or any like battle stories like that, right?
I didn't do door-to-door like I'm in the neighborhood. However, I did do like cold in-person sales. And so I started a company in college called Collegiate Gaming Land, which basically what we did is we hosted video game tournaments on college campuses. I was actually looking at the article. So I don't know if people are listening to UGA. So I got in the red and black, which is the premier paper for University of Georgia. So it's like a highlight of my college career. I got it on the paper, and it was for this company. Like we broke it down, we got revenue, we were profitable, all this stuff. So I ended up going into organizations, companies, restaurants, and yeah, I went in there with like basically my pitch papers because I had like a binder of them, and I went in and pitched people.
And how'd it go?
It went well. I mean, we closed accounts like because we found out that we knew that gamers weren't definitely going to these places during the week. They weren't going out at all for the most part. Yet they wanted tournaments, and normally the tournaments I went to the organizations. They only play them like at the gaming organizations. But I was like, but none of these bars, none of these restaurants had ever done any gaming tournaments ever. Yeah. So I was like, you guys are missing out on people that you don't even get. So like, what if I could help you host this tournament, bring these people here, and then you get in the basement, you give us the space for free. That was the key. Like I get the space for free. I don't have to pay for the rental space. And then by doing this event, we can get money through sponsors, which is how we made the money.
Yeah.
And so we actually got so shout out to beer companies. We got sponsored by Terrapin. We got sponsored by Creature Comforts.
Nice.
So I mean, we had some pretty good sponsors. Dave & Buster's is the claim to fame, but like, yeah, I mean, that was the I literally went into organizations and people would look at me crazy. I remember going to Creature Comforts and the manager, the owner there was like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Yep, let me tell you what's going on." So like, I think that's where I really learned the approach of prospecting, but I didn't even know it yet.
Yeah, you just kind of like had to sort it out because here's what there was to do is who would be interested, think it through, plan it out, show up and pitch.
Exactly.
Yeah, well that's pure sales start to finish, I guess. So then you've done it where you've walked in, you've done it where you're sitting in somewhere, you're on the phone, probably done some little more outbound, a little more inbound, and now your whole thing, right, is training other people, dealing with what they're dealing with now, and trying to give them some systems, some leverage to get into some better results than whatever they happen to be doing at the moment. So besides the ICPs of the ICPs, what is, this is, whether it's not different or it is different from before COVID aside, what is the most critical thing for the people who end up coming and who are looking for help, right? Like looking for some kind of help, some kind of training, some kind of support that goes a little beyond just watching, videos and pre-recorded content. The people who are coming to you, what is it that they're struggling with, and what tends to be like the first thing that there is to work on?
It seems to be like there's like 3 to 4 themes. I think one is cold calling. I think people are starting to get back into cold calling. It's what it seems like. I mean, it might be different for everybody, right? But what it seems like is people are asking a lot about cold calling and how do you do that? All right, cool. So that's that component there. Number 2 is discovery and qualification, because that's critical, because now you do have to do a discovery, because if you can't, then you're going to get ghosted more now than you did before. Right? So that seems to be very top of mind. 3 is people wanting to learn how to use video. So it's a challenge for getting their reps to embrace video, even get on Zoom and do video, all those different things. Yeah. And I think number 4 is branding and social selling. Like, how do I brand myself in a way that's unique? How do I do social selling that's unique? Mm-hmm. Those seem to be like the top 4, like in the trainings that I've done. Like, that's what people are asking for.
Yeah. And what tends to be, and let's go in that last part of it, because again, there's so much information about processes for the selling and the reaching out and the cold calling, but the video and the social selling is newish, right? And the video component, especially in the using it like for calls, video messaging, all that kind of stuff, far newer than the rest of it. So in those areas, what do you find is the biggest thing in people's way of actually taking the steps? Because again, I know I used to do a lot of consulting back in the day, and it pretty rarely was lack of knowledge that's holding people back, especially now when you got it right at your fingertips. Yeah. But there's some kind of barrier. So between the putting themselves out there in the social kind of way, and which in video especially, right? You got to put your mug right on the screen and just like you're right there. What are the major barriers, and what's something that you can give people now to be like, here's what I would look at and here's what I would do next if you're not quite willing to make the move?
The move in terms of video, or the move into
like start using video, like like the what stops where people are stopped from using video, and I'm going to include in that whether it's like message video or it's creating content, right? Like doing the brand and putting content around your sales approach.
Yep.
What is the main stopper for people, and what is your answer for that?
Yeah. So how I see it is that one is to not overthink it. So that's on video, but that's also for your social selling as well and creating content. If you want to go that route, a lot of it is overthinking. Like, you know how to do a cold call, and essentially it's the same thing, except you can just see my face.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of it, number one, is overthinking it. Even if I give people a formula, exactly what to say, they're still going to overthink it to be like, it's got to be perfect. And it doesn't have to be. People just want to see a relatable human that can bring some type of value proposition at the end of the day. And that's number one. People overthink it. I think number two is people give up too soon. So they'll do like 3 videos and be like, yeah, that was it. It's like, what? You did 3 videos. Like, you didn't do 3 emails, 3 calls. Like, you can't just do 3 videos. You got to continuously practice it and get better and fine tune it. So that stops a lot of people because they just stop at 3. They say, oh, I made 3 and no one responded. Well, you only made 3. You have to have a bigger sample size.
Yeah.
In order to do that. I think another thing is people make them too long. So they're like 3, 4, 5 minutes videos where you're explaining something that could be relevant. However, at the end of the day, you just wasted your time. The prospect, they're not going to watch the whole thing. When you should be making it way shorter. You should be making it less than 90 seconds and condensing it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I would – and also, actually another piece is, let's go to the social piece, because what ends up happening is you get nervous and anxious because you are afraid of what other people are going to think about you. Mm-hmm. So what I always tell people is, hey, look, like, focus on impacting one person. By impacting one person, it's going to be a lot better for you, right? So a lot of this just comes down to fear of what other people are going to say, and then fear of what am I going to say? Because if you can nip those 2 in the bud, then you're going to be able to do the social selling and also the video. I think ultimately at the end of the day, like, if what I encourage people to do to get things started is finding someone in your organization who wants to take on video, create a power user, and then now you have advocates that will see that power user, the power rep doing it, to be like, oh, Sally can do it. Cool. I'll do it too. Right. So it'll get them more in that motion. But ultimately, you got to have someone that's a huge advocate, internal champion of video, so then other people feel like they can do it too.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that's in a team environment, that's a great. If you see someone who's already great doing that, you're willing to do it too. And so the last thing is, I would point that at, and I don't know, I did see on the, Jay Barrows, I know you've got options for individuals. And so I don't know if you guys get a lot of business owners, right, and solopreneurs and all the rest of this coming at it. But in our market here in Buffalo, there's a lot of the super small business. You're not dealing with teams, right? You're dealing with the owner who's also out selling. And even though they're close to their business and they know their customers pretty well and they know their product pretty well, not necessarily have they ever done any of these actual approaches, right? It's not like they ever thought about, what's my prospecting approach? And, like, how do I fill that funnel? And like, oh, cool, now video, I can learn that too. Awesome. It's usually they're not the most receptive crowd because they're already overwhelmed with everything that it takes to be in a business.
Yep.
So for those folks who are, it's not just their job to be a rep, right? There's a lot of other stuff going on, and they're still going to have those fears you just talked about, right? They're still going to and throw in trying something new because you actually have a staked reputation, and they're even a little more fearful, right? Because people already know me, and if this makes me look worse, I'm out. So is there a different approach you use for the business person, the business owner who's also selling, than you would for reps? And if so, like, what would you tell that person to deal with fear? Because, you can't quite deal with them the same way as you would a sales rep because they've got more going on.
Well, from the business owner perspective, the problem there is that the service or the product is essentially your child, right? And you think it's amazing, right? So you want to over share with someone in terms of prospecting versus the sales rep will still overshare, but not as much as the business owner because like it's theirs, right? Yeah. So in a sales conversation, and you're in a cycle, cool. Prospecting is different. So my advice to them is, hey, look, be brief, be brilliant, be gone. You need to take the information that is in your head and you need to consolidate it to make sure that you're not oversharing it. Mm-hmm. I think the same goes for a sales rep. I just think for a business owner, it's a lot harder because they may be technical. They may have built the product, right? So they want to tell you all this stuff that is in the product when from a business standpoint, I don't really care about that. Yeah. Right. So I think that's the huge shift for most founders because most of them just aren't very familiar with sales or it's not something they've got themselves into.
Yeah, no doubt. And the being too close to it for sure. I always found the best flag for that is the phrase "no brainer." When anyone's ever said, "Well, I just don't understand it because for me it's a no brainer," it's like, okay, that's why other people like us exist, right? Because yes, if you've been buried in it for a year and it's like your life's dream and like what your gift to the world, it looks like a no brainer, but obviously no one else thinks so. That's why they're not buying it. So exactly. The only no brain is the one we're not using right now to market this cleverly.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
All right, bud. Well, that's I'm going to let you get on with your evening and carry on with your day. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to shout out or promo or anything you want to say to wrap this up?
Yeah. So last thing that I'll tell everybody is that any we're on this podcast right now or any webinar you go on, just make a decision to execute on what's being said. Like if I listen to something, now I'm like, all right, what's the action steps here? Is it 2 things, 1 thing? It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but that's what I would encourage everybody. Like, don't just listen to things, like do something about it.
Nice. Yes. That's what actually matters, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, thanks for the recommendation. I'm enjoying the Purple Haze and I'll continue to enjoy it afterwards. And thanks for the time, bud.
You're welcome.
Cheers.